checking. Are we live? I think we are. Cool. Hello. Ugh. Oh my gosh, as I shake everything. Okay. I'm going to try not to destroy my whole setup before I even get rolling here. Hello. I'm Amanda Call. I'm working on completing this illustration here. I have it all drawn and some of the color started from last time. I still need to do the color on the skull. I started with the flowers because I knew I didn't have a lot of time. I didn't want to get interrupted and forget what I was doing. So we're going to continue laying down some color with my Derwent Inktense water-soluble ink pencils. It's a mouthful. But let's see. I'm going to scroll over to the appropriate reference image on my computer. And we're going to get started on working on putting in color on the mouse skull. So if you're watching, feel free to say hi in the chat. I may not look up and see it right away, but I will eventually look up and see it. And if you have any questions, just let me know. This skull was a very complicated shape. It gave me lots of trouble. I'm going to try to not get confused doing it. This color that I'm laying down is called mustard, and it comes out to be a pretty bright yellow. It comes out a lot brighter than you think and a lot stronger than you think. So I'm trying to go in fairly light and easy here. This is a mouse skull along with some mouse ears, which is a type of chickweed. Let's see. Not as much of a yellow tone on the jaw, according to my reference, which when it comes to coloring for the skull, I don't get too wrapped up in the reference. I use it as kind of a guideline, but I'm more concerned with the shadows than the particular colors. Because a lot of times the reference just looks kind of all over grayish, all over yellowish, which would just not make for a very interesting piece. So I kind of got to take what little bit of color and tones I see there and kind of push it. And in some places, just do something a little bit different to make the image read a little bit better. Oh, let's see. Any yellow anywhere else? I don't think so. I mean, I'm going to give a very light amount of a brighter yellow, just kind of a tiny bit, just all over. Not a lot, just a very tiny amount. So you can hardly even see it. Probably on the camera you can't see it at all. Oh, let's see. Brown. Which brown are you? Are you the one I want? Baked Earth. You can tell that I like this one a lot because it's very nubby. But that's kind of dull, so I'm going to dig out my little pencil sharpener and make it a little bit less dull. build some of these shadows up a little bit. Oh, hello. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. It's coming along pretty well. So this is some more of that weird, like, spiderwebby stuff that you get in some of the little corners of the skull. I want to make sure I leave some of the lighter sections to still give that effect. Not fill the whole thing in, just dark. Let's see. And there's a bit of a shift in plane there. That I'm going to kind of want in a different color, though. There's kind of some different tones going on over here. Let's see about this weird twisty cheekbone here. Mouse skulls are so weird. Yeah, I mean, this isn't really going to stay a texture. This is all going to get kind of smoothed out when I hit it with the water, but I still want to make sure that I don't get too carried away as far as making the forms on the skull, because that's pretty much all there is the shading to let you know what's going on here. This whole area is actually going to be pretty dark, so I'm not going to worry too much about how much is going on there. This, we've got a little pocket here. Such a bizarre structure. Some more of that weird webby stuff. All of this is pretty dark down here. And I do have a reference image pulled up on my other monitor, so you can't see it, but it's there. I'm looking at something. I'm not making this up. I would be hopelessly lost if I were trying to make up a mouse skull off the top of my head. some of these little teeths. I also keep on having to remind myself, what is negative space in this very complicated little structure back here? Like, that's negative space, that's negative space. Don't color those in, Amanda. Those are negative space. Sorry, I'm getting quiet because I'm concentrating. Yeah, all the skulls. It's been a really challenging series. The only one I had done before was the cat skull. That's the only one I had drawn before. So this is the fourth in a series. I did a cat skull, a dog skull, a hare skull, like a wild rabbit skull, and the mouse now. I have one more planned in the series. We'll see if I do it on the stream or not. Kind of depends on if I'm at a point to start working on comic pages on the stream again, because that's what I normally do, but my comic's been at a place in the story where I didn't want to work on the pages on the stream and spoil what's happening, so that's had to wait. So I worked on this little series while we were working through that. But I'm just about done with that part of the comic, so I don't know if by next week when I do this again, I'll be ready to start on non-spoilery pages or not. So we'll see. I might end up finishing out this series and then switch back to comic pages. We'll see how it goes. All right, bark. It's another kind of it's still a warm brown, but it's very dark. So I'm just going to use this in a couple little spots on here. I want it to be pretty dark. Just a couple little spots in here that need a little bit extra to just push them a little further. And there's a couple spots where I'm going to have to come in with a different darker color because they're need a different tone to them. It's going to be a different color. Let's see. I'm going to do a little bit in here, though. And a little bit down here. All right, let's see. I'm going to move on to, there's some different cool tones in here. I will pick out a little bit. What comics am I reading when I have time? So I don't really keep up with any anything that's like currently releasing, like any of the monthly releases or anything. I'll usually read like graphic novels. Sometimes I'll read trade paperbacks of collected things. It's just difficult for me to keep up with anything. I don't keep up with like current TV either. I don't keep up with anything current. I just don't have the time or the mental energy. But a lot of the like graphic novels I've read recently have been more like young adult or middle grade type graphic novels. So I've been catching up on like some older like Raina Telgemeier and I have the latest Lucy Nisley book waiting on my nightstand to be read soon. Basically just because they're really readable and they're really accessible and they're easy to get through, but also they have some really rock solid storytelling in that it's very simple and it's very pared back, and there's a lot actually to gain from reading something that's told in a simpler style. Because if you're kind of peeling it back to the fundamentals of like, you know, you're not doing anything super flashy, you're not doing anything. Oh, I switched to iron green, by the way. We'll see how this works. You're not doing anything super flashy. You're not doing anything like really dramatic, but you're still telling an effective story. And it's kind of, I just find it really interesting and informative to read those. The one I read most recently was for book club, and it was the graphic novel adaptation of Juliet Takes a Breath. And I enjoyed it, but I think I would have enjoyed the regular novel more because the graphic novel adaptation just felt kind of rushed. Like I feel like they did not give the artist anywhere near enough time to complete it, which was too bad because it was a style that worked really well for the story, and the coloring was gorgeous. Coloring was absolutely beautiful. But the drawing, it was clear that like she was just running out of time. She was just running out of time, and there were a lot of panels and a lot of choices where it was like you could just feel the panic. Which was really too bad because otherwise it would have been really great, but I could tell that like a lot of everyone else in my book club was like, yeah, something about it seemed a little off, but I wasn't really sure what, and I got confused a lot, and I'm like, let me explain why that happened. So we're doing a little bit of green. I'm going to do a little bit of a dark blue if I can find it. Where are you? There it is. Oh, it's dull too. Deep indigo. I did also recently buy a couple of graphic novels from a friend's like comic and game store when they had to shut down for a couple weeks because of needing to quarantine people for possible exposure of bad stuffs. So, you know, I bought a couple of comic books to help them get through that slower period. And I forget what the name of one of it. I forget the name of one of them. It was something I had never heard of before, and it just looked neat, so I got it. And then another one was an old X-Men trade paperback of the Barry Windsor Smith run. So I'm excited to read that too. Eventually, it'll probably sit on my nightstand for like a year before I get to read it, because that's just how life goes. Okay, this needs a little more definition. How do I want to do that? Where is my sepia? That's what I want. I'm going to give this just a little more definition in here. The sepia has kind of a, I wouldn't even really call it sepia. It's got kind of a greenish tone to it. It's weird. But it's really good for adding to, like, add a little depth to colors. When you're blending a bunch of stuff in a shadow. That can be pretty neat. All right. Let's see. I think I'm pretty much good to what was I doing? There we go. I think I'm pretty much good to start activating this with the water. So now we get to see the fun. Yeah, their headlines do indeed suck. Mark Crowley's new one. Oh, I'll have to look that up. I'm always thrilled when people have suggestions, because a lot of times I'm just overwhelmed with how many amazing choices of things to read there are out there. Yeah, so they're actually water-soluble ink pencils. So they're like drawing inks. So they're a little different than watercolor pencils. So for one thing, they're very, very intense. It takes very little water to activate them and get a very intense, deep, rich coverage. Which I like. The colors are super duper vibrant. Look at how pretty. So I'm wetting my brush, but then kind of just getting any of the excess water off on a little paper towel that's in my offhand, just out of frame here, so I don't flood my paper. So part of the technique when you're learning to use these is that it does not take as much coverage as you would think to get a really rich, vibrant color. So if you want your colors to be fairly light, you have to have a very light touch with laying them down. So the other thing that's cool about these and informs the way that you use them is that once they are dry, they will not reactivate. So once you've hit them with water and then they're allowed to dry, they will not reactivate. So that yellow right there in the middle of that flower, if I go back over it with water, it's not going to move. It's not going to reactivate and blend with what's on there, which is good for, you know, getting nice little fine details to overlap. But you need to be very careful about the order in which you do things. Oh, these flowers came out way browner than I was expecting. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh bother. There's supposed to be a lot more white than that. See, I was not paying as much attention as I was just talking about needing to when I laid these down last time. Oops, stray water droplet. Okay, I'm gonna have to change my approach a little bit, I think. Okay, so that's what we're gonna have to do. So I'm gonna have to, because there's a little bit too much of this, so I'm gonna have to just do try to get that dark brown activated just in the center and not let it draw up through the rest of the white, because it's making the rest of the white muddy, which I do not want. I'll have to keep those a little more controlled. I'll have to go back and fix those with gouache or something later. More of those lines in the middle here. So what I'm trying to do now is, because I put a little bit too much, I went a little too heavy-handed on the darker pencils on these flowers. So I'm trying to basically use that property of them not moving once they're activated to kind of trap them into smaller locations and keep them just as accents rather than turning the whole flower brown, which is not what I wanted. So I'm trying to kind of activate it in just the areas where I drew it. Let that dry, and then I can go over the rest to kind of do any residual blending without turning the whole thing super dark brown, which is not what I wanted. That seems to be helping. Okay, there's the flowers, which didn't come out quite the way I wanted, but that's okay. We can fix it. All right, so I'm going to move on to the skull. So because of that same property of them of those really super dark points, like one of the fact you can activate them and then they will stay put once they dry. So I'm going to come in and do some of these little dark pockets. Get those activated and fixed first off so that they stay nice and dark in just a little localized spot instead of turning all of this dark, as you saw it can happen like with my flowers over here. This. Okay. Bunch of those little pockets. You can see how much that darkened up too, especially on something that's supposed to generally be kind of white. Be very careful not to let it get totally out of hand. Little skull divots. But also, like most wet media, you also have to be very careful about lap lines, about letting one area dry and trying to blend it seamlessly with an area next to it. It will not work. You gotta keep a wet edge if you want stuff blended together. So you kind of have to plan as you work on larger areas, like where is a good place to have those edges versus where is not a good place to have those edges. So now you should see that those little darker spots don't move when we go back over them. This weird cheekbone ribbon thing. Yeah, it's a really cool feature of the medium that I did not really realize right away, like how differently that meant I was going to have to learn how to use it when I first started using them. Like it was one of those things they tell you like on the tin that you get them in, like, oh, color is fixed after it dries. And I'm like, oh, well, that's kind of neat. And then the first time I went to like try to blend something that was already dried, and I was like, oh no. But once you like realize that and incorporate it into the way that you work, then there's actually a lot of cool stuff you can do with it. Because like right there, I don't have to worry about it. That edge is fixed. I don't have to worry about that color bleeding after I let it dry. It's just a case of like, it's not necessarily what you expect if you're expecting it to be like watercolor pencils. But once you realize that that's just the way this medium works and you know to expect it and to work with it, then you can really utilize it to your advantage. Get some of this. Yeah, sure. I'll show you in just a second. So these are the pencils. Let me try to get it where my light will actually read it. So they're from Derwent. They're Inktense is what they're called. And you can get them from pretty much anywhere. They're fairly expensive, so I would start by buying them somewhere, like buying one or two to experiment with from somewhere that sells them open stock. I usually buy them open stock on Dick Blick. I think you can buy them directly from Derwent as well. Like I know they have an online store. I don't remember whether they do open stock on their online store or not. I don't know why they wouldn't, but I started by buying just one. I started with buying just one so that I could experiment with it and see if I liked it, because they're not cheap, but as you can see, I've basically changed my entire color art creation style to incorporate them. So as like the main foundation of it. So clearly I liked them. But yeah, even just like a small set of them is not cheap, so I would definitely go with just just like one or two to start out and see if you like the way that they work before you invest in like a large set of them. After I bought the one, then I ended up buying the like a 12 set or whatever the standard 12 set was. And of course, in any of those sets, like you get some colors that you completely use up and other colors that you never touch. And so then I've just been buying them open stock as I need them. Yeah, I hope you enjoy them. I think they're really great, but they are a little bit weird. They do take a fair amount of getting used to. And because they're activated with water, I usually use them. What I'm using them on right now is a mixed media paper. Because that way they still go on like nice dry, but the paper holds up to the water being applied to it. It buckles a little, but not much. I just kind of hate drawing on watercolor paper because it's always like you just get like so much texture that it's like, I didn't mean to draw there. Didn't mean to make a mark over there. The paper has a mind of its own. Especially because, as you will see, there is more to this technique to come. Kind of bummed that those couple of flowers up in the corner didn't come out right, because I'm really enjoying how the mouse skull is coming out. I'm pretty sure I can still save it. It's just less than ideal. Almost there on this stage. This stage of this process. Okay, so that's all of that stage. What are we at? We're at 43 minutes. I will not probably actually 100% finish this on the stream, but I'll be very close. I'll be very, very close. Saturated paper towel over here. Okay, so now I need to find a spot on my kneaded eraser that is not grungy. What is in there? That's like white colored pencil flakes. All right, let's find a spot in the kneaded eraser that's not too bad. That looks relatively clean. So now we're going to pull out some of my pencil lines, which is kind of a crazy looking step, especially on those white flowers. But don't worry, it's okay. It's gonna all make sense when we're done, I promise. Even if I may not actually finish it on stream, and you'll still be a little bit confused. But we're gonna lighten up, or in some cases eliminate those lines. This all dries very quickly too, so like even this spot I just did, it's already dry. Cleaning up a little bit of general smudginess. Okay. So now it looks very weird and different because I have picked up most of the pencil lines. But now what we're going to do as I shuffle things over here is now we're going to travel back to the 90s with our space maker. And we're going to pick out some details and enhance some shadows things with colored pencils. I like the Prismacolors. They're nice and creamy and they smell good. I've been using them forever, so. And I know which colors I like. That helps too. Which I need to find. there's one of them. Tuscan red. Where's my indigo blue? Oh, last time I made an art supply order, I meant to order more colored pencils and I forgot. It's already on its way without any more colored pencils. She said as if she wasn't going to make another art supply order like a week later. Hey, thanks. Pretty pleased with how it's coming out. Okay. Tuscan red, indigo blue, and yellow ochre. My holy trinity of making the shadows go good. So I'm going to start with a little bit of the indigo blue here. Indigo blue, of course, is very cool. Nice and dark blue. And the other thing is that at this stage, I basically also stop looking at my reference, because at this point, which, you know, some people might think is fine and some people might think is like utterly blasphemous, because at this point, I'm not going to fundamentally really change a lot on this. So it's really more about taking what I have at this point and making it the best it can be of what it is. Like if I've completely missed the mark on the reference at this point, I'm probably not going to be able to drag it back to there. But I can take what I've got and push it towards being more better of itself, if that makes sense. I hope I'm making some amount of sense. Like the only reason I might look at the references if I'm like, wait, what am I doing here? I think I totally got lost here. What? I'm confused. All right, so you do a little bit of indigo blue, and then you come over it with a little bit of Tuscan red to make it a little less blue and cold looking. You can see this just starts to enhance some of those shadows. This is the other reason why I don't use watercolor paper. Hold on, I can't read your comment. Oh. I don't know. It's a curve. It's a curve. What is this? Geometry class? I don't know. All right, so that's helping to make some of those shadows pop out a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow ochre in a couple of spots where I kind of want to keep those shadows a little bit warmer. Which is most of it, honestly. This part I think I'm going to leave. And see how that changes the tone of the shadows. All right, where is another one of my favorites, chocolate. Oh, I can't read. My light is in the way and I can't read the comments that are on the bottom. Dang it. It says, oh, yeah. I understand it now. Add some of the chocolate to help just bring back in a little more definition in some of these spots with like a middle brown. Help get that cheekbone to pop forward. Push some of these other things back a little bit. What time is it? Oh my gosh, we're already at 52 minutes. Wow. Okay, this time just flew by. So I only do these streams for about an hour, partially because I should have known it was getting that late because my neck is killing me. Partially because we all need to get up and stretch. And like get a drink of water or something. Just take care of yourself, please. It's very easy to not accidentally. So let's not do that. So yeah, I'll be wrapping this up in just a little bit. So I don't quite have this finished, which is too bad, but I will have it done a little later this evening because I don't have a lot left to do. This stage does not take very long because I'm not working the whole thing over. I'm just picking out a few little details and areas I want to enhance a little bit and just give a little extra boost. Yeah, so that won't take terribly long, but I'll go over the stuff real quick. The video stuff. I'm Amanda Call. If you've been watching and commenting, cool, you're awesome. Thank you. Make sure you like the video, and if you haven't subscribed yet, then you should definitely subscribe because I do these weekly live streams every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, unless for some reason I have to change that, in which case you'll want to subscribe so you know when that changes. But I've been steadily doing them at Tuesday at 8 for a while now, and I don't foresee that changing anytime soon. You will normally see me on this live stream working on my comic pages from my webcomic, Age of Night, which can be found at ageofnight.com, where you can read the whole thing online for free. It updates with a new comic page every Wednesday. And that's Age of Night, AGEOFNIGHT.com. But like I said, I'm at the end of a chapter, so I didn't want to work on spoilery pages on the stream. So you can find me on Twitter at Age of Night. You can find me on Instagram at Amanda Call Art. And you can also find me on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Age of Night, spelled the same way as the comic. So yeah, that's I did not quite get to finish this, but I'm getting awfully close to being finished with it, so that's good. I'll have it finished later tonight, and I'll probably go and post it over on Instagram if you want to check it out there. This skull has in general been taking me a lot longer than most of the others. It's just a lot more complicated. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad you were able to join. It's always nice to see somebody new in the chat section. So I think that's going to do it for this evening. I will post this a little later this evening when I am done, which I'm very close to. So thanks, everybody. And I will see you all next time.